Rachel Edidin, and alongside Miles Stokes, I host Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men, a weekly podcast all about the ins, outs, and retcons of our favorite superhero soap opera. I also co-host Rachel and Miles Review the X-Men, that's what you're watching right now, which is a set of video reviews of the X-books that come out in any given week. Now, obviously Miles isn't here this week. Normally we record these on Thursday evenings, but this week an emergency came up, which meant that as the one of us who's actually, working from home and so able to record on Friday during the day, I am flying solo. You may also notice, if you were familiar with the previous videos in this series, that I am recording this from our fancy new digs in Castle Sexy Dracula, specifically from the kitchen, which is the room that has an appropriately sized stack of boxes for my laptop. So without further ado, are the X-books for the week of August 5th, 2015. We are all Battleworld this week, and first up on the docket is Giant-Size Little Marvel's AvX number 3, written and drawn by Skottie Young, with colors by Jean-Francois Beaulieu. This series has been and remains really delightful. It's fun, it's lighthearted, it has very little connection to the actual Marvel Universe. If you are someone who is going to be concerned about characters being portrayed out of character in simplified versions, this will bug you, and specifically Cyclops and Captain America will bug you, and I will admit that these things kind of bugged me because I am irrational and have specific tics about this stuff, but it's a really fun book. I think I would have liked it better now that we're on issue 3 if it were broken into shorter stories, if we had backup stories, or if we at least had less ongoing, because again, it's paced and shaped very much like a kid's cartoon, and as such, having it be more a collection of fast-paced shorts than ongoing would, I think, suit the tone better. It's still a fun book, and this issue I finally got to do something I've been wanting to do for the whole series, which is read it with an actual kid who had no problems with the things I just called out and really enjoyed it. Actually, the kids we know who've been following this book really love it, both the ones who are hardcore Marvel Universe fans and not. So if you're looking for a gateway title for younger readers that's still got enough in the way of inside jokes and double entendres and more adult humor to let parents read along kind of on their own level at the same time, I'd recommend this one. It's fun, it's lighthearted, it's very, I think, maybe soft G to PG rated, and Skottie Young is, as always, fantastic. Here I think he's doing some very deliberate and very visible homage to Bill Watterson, as you should when you're drawing the adventures of tiny kids and giant monsters, and it plays really beautifully. Next up is X-Men 92 Infinite Comics number 6, written by Chad Bowers and Chris Sims, with art by Scott Koblish and colors by Matt Milla. Now, again, this is a series that's coming out digital first. Every 2 digital issues, which are coming out bi-weekly, are collected in a monthly print issue. And I've been saying this every time, but once again, if you're choosing between digital and print, on this series, you should go digital. If you're a collector, I mean, I get why you choose print, but this series is a great example of the cool stuff that digital first comics can do, and a lot of that is lost in the print translation. It's still a strong comic in issue format, but losing those transitions and losing the Infinite Comics stuff, you lose some of the storytelling and you lose some really good craft, which I think, for me at least, is a lot of the fun of reading it. I should also, as usual, disclaim that this series is co-written by my best friend. Miles and I are characters in it, although Chris told us that we have made our last appearance. We are presumably dead off panel somewhere, given that Cable has already burst in, and we worked for the villain. But yeah, so obviously I am biased. I am also right, though, when I say that this comic is superlative and it's really fun and it's continuing to be. This issue, we're getting to see a little more of the ongoing plot, a little more of the intrigue, and a little more of the connection to the larger battle world. And it's nice seeing that Bowers, Sims, and Koblish can really balance that and play it as well as they can the homage and satire that have marked the series previously. I think a lot of the emphasis in the reviews of this series, including to some extent ours, have been on Bowers and Sims as writers, because A, they're pretty well-known guys, but B, the extent to which they've really gone out of their way to capture the tone both of the 90s X-Men cartoon and of the very different comics that were coming out contemporary to that deserves note. And I want to talk about Koblish and Milla, as I've been, because so much of what makes this series work is the art. Koblish, like Sims and Bowers, and in collaboration, manages to hit a note that is very obviously referential to, again, both the cartoons and the comics of 1992, while not actually replicating them. I mean, this feels like a really natural evolution. It feels like a very clear reference while also very solidly having its own voice, and I love that. It's also really funny, really well paced, and has an increasingly compelling ongoing plot. It's a great series. Again, I'm biased, but I am also right, and you should be reading this. Finally comes Age of Apocalypse #2, written by Fabian Nicieza, with art by Gerardo Sandoval, and colors by David Curiel. And, you know, I am biased here. I'm gonna say I really liked this comic, and a lot of why I liked it is that Cypher's the main character. Cypher gets to be the protagonist of something. Cypher gets to be relevant to something. Cypher is my favorite underrated X-Man, and you should love him as much as I do. And as much as apparently Fabian Nicieza appreciates him, so A+ there. It's also a fun comic, and it's one of the sort of revivals of an older series or premise that I think is most directly, immediately, and visibly rooted in the original material. The artist Gerardo Sandoval is doing a really spot-on Joe Mad in the art. I mean, it really looks like, and story-wise, it reads like it could have been pulled out of the original Age of Apocalypse books. So with that in mind, how much you like it and how much you get out of it is probably largely going to depend on how much you liked or how much you would have liked that series. If you are into dark dystopian futures, oversized muscles, really improbable gauntlets, and profoundly glam hair, you'll dig this. If you're not so fond of those things, this may not be the book for you. It's got a very specific tone, visually and narratively. And, you know, again, Age of Apocalypse was my first introduction to the X-Men, so I've got a lot of fond feelings for that, and I kind of impressed on it like a baby duck. But where that goes for you, again, will depend on your individual taste. And I should say Miles is actually messaging me right now about this, and says, can I request that you say that I described AOA as a tone poem if the tone was, and then there are 4 A's and 5 H's. So that too. Age of Apocalypse #2. We're looking at what are 3 very much mid-series titles this week, so choosing our issue of the week was a little bit challenging, but eventually we settled on X-Men 92 Infinite Comic #6. It's a very strong continuation of a very strong series by a creative team who have consistently been knocking their premise out of the park. It's one of the strongest things to come out of Battleworld in terms not only of humor, but also of resonance, and we've been really enjoying it. As far as our panel of the week, we deliberated between a few, and just as we thought we had pinned one down, David Wynn, who is the Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men artist, you see his art with every new episode, sent us his illustration for episode 69, and we decided that we don't care if it's not in this week's comics, it is still our panel of the week because it's that cool. There you go. This will also give you a hint as to what you'll be listening to this coming Sunday. And that, as they say, is that. If you like what you've seen here, please check out our podcast, Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men. It's weekly. New episodes go up every Sunday at rachelandmiles.com, as well as on iTunes and Stitcher. And you can check out rachelandmiles.com for a whole bunch of extra material, episode companion posts, essays, art, and much, much more. rachelandmiles.com, the podcast, and everything we do here, it's entirely ad-free and it's entirely listener-supported by the good folks who contribute to our Patreon. If you like what you're seeing, if you like what you're listening to, and you want there to be more of it, you can help make that happen by clicking the Patreon link either above or below this video, depending on where you're watching it. Hopefully you'll be checking back with us on Sunday for the podcast. We have our first ever completely guest-hosted episode. Like I mentioned, we moved this weekend, and 2 of our very good friends and fellow podcasters, Elle Collins of Intuit and Graham McMillan of Wait What, volunteered to fill in for us. They did a fantastic episode all about Beast's solo adventures, how he went blue and furry during the Amazing Adventures run, or around it. This is their territory. And in addition to being a terrific treat for us, because we actually just got to listen to an episode without going, oh my god, do we really sound like that? And just enjoy it. I think it is one of the strongest we've put together. So yeah, Elle and Graham, thank you so much. Listen to them on Sunday, and we will see you around. Normally, this is the part of the video review where we drop in a funny tag, but it's just me this week and I'm feeling kind of lazy, so see you around.